Bye, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for all the information. Yeah, we need to keep reviewing Mr. Show.
Kábíyèsí o, adúpẹ́ o, adúpẹ́ oore, adúpẹ́ àyẹ́sí, ẹ̀yin náà pẹ́ fún wa o, ẹ ṣé fún olórí, adúpẹ́ o, princess adúpẹ́ o, ẹ pẹ́ fún wa o, ọmọọba Ejimi, ẹ̀yin náà ṣé o, adúpẹ́ fún gbogbo àwọn tó wà bí o, ẹ̀ẹ́dẹ̀lẹ́ láyọ̀, àdẹ̀lẹ́báre, àrìnàkúrẹ́, àkòyà ibi o, ẹ ṣé o, àdẹ̀dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ gbogbo àwọn tó wá pín pẹ̀lú wa nírọ̀lẹ́ láti yẹ ọba sí. We thank you very much. God bless you in all things. Amen. Ẹ ṣé. One of the things that we wanted to achieve with this visitation of the Fadesewa of Simawa is to rekindle this notion of cultural and educational exchange program, which we started off from 1977. So we're hoping that Uncle Oba is going to help us lead that charge. But in leading the charge, there is something that he wants to also transmit to us when it comes to the transmission of education. What is education and what is it? That is it for a professor to just give you the word and then come exam time, you regurgitate it and you get your A and you leave? No, it's building the entire human being from the African, or what you could call in America, the Afrocentric notion of doing that. And so we thank you very much. And over the next couple of days, both the Fadesewa, Uncle Oba, as well as Princess Kola Sonuga, and the Prince Sonuga over there, Jimmy, we're going to be meeting to talk about the next steps in empowering the young ones out of Simawa, and to see biannually how we could do a cultural and educational exchange program whereby the kids are empowered. If we don't prepare the kids today to face tomorrow, then we have a challenge. So thank you so very much again, Uncle Oba, for the presentation, and we're going to build on that. And thank you for the history as well. I'm going to give it back to our MC, but I think I'm just the next one to talk. Earlier in the day, we went into the Grove, if you will, and the Oba honored both Mamati and I with the honorary title of Ibile Loro of Simawa, and it carries with it a lot of responsibility to be able to assist other people grow as well, to be able to assist the land and to bring resources to the land so that the land can grow. So we're going to continue to do that. We want to express our appreciation to the Kabiyesi, Adúpẹ́, Apẹ́pẹ́dá, and also to the Olori. She played a big role in our unraveling before you today, to be honored with the Chieftaincy title. And we want to show our appreciation in a lot of ways. I'd like you to join me in giving a round of applause to the Olori, as well as to the Oba and the Princess and the Prince. Thank you very much. And so, without much ado, as soon as
ẹgbẹ́ fún wa o, agbára Ọlọ́run. I just want to take this opportunity to thank everybody here. And also, Olori, you are so wonderful to come with our high Oba. And the princess, I really thank you too. You said everything so eloquently. You are very correct. And I sincerely agree with everything you said about us in diaspora. I've been here since 1965. And I know the feeling, and I know how it is. But your words of inspiration really inspire some of us to go back home. So thank you very much. I want to thank Dr. T'Shaka. You are really great. Thank you for promoting our culture in San Francisco. You've done so much. No, this for almost 30 plus years now. We really, really love you. We like you so much. Same thing with NCC. And also, I didn't know I was going to speak today until I look at the, I'm going back to you, until I look at the brochure. And I said, oh my God. Kola called me a couple of days ago. He said, we want you to come and meet Oba. And you know, when Kola called you, you have to say how high. So I have to persuade my wife to come. So we really love Kola, what you have done. I call him Sir Kola Thomas. I've known him for many, many years, just like my brother. We've done so many things together. We've been to Atlanta to welcome Obasanjo. We were so impressed about what he did that time, not today. We're also very impressed about Kola. We did rally around together to work for Abiola when he was running for presidency. And Kola is such a very nice guy, very, very nice man. He knows how to bring the words out, teaching our people Yoruba. It's really, really incredible. And also his wife. So I'm so happy for you for confining the chieftaincy today. This is really incredible. Overdue. And you beat me to it. He told me about you that you happen to know my chief of my, king of my village, the late Oba Shola Oni, my childhood friend. I've already talked to him several times that, I have somebody in San Francisco that I really want you to think about him. Unfortunately, he died about 3 years ago. He was my very, very good childhood friend. So thank you for carrying on the legacy. Thank you for confining to him, him and his wife. They mean so much here. Now, let me talk briefly about my wife. We've been married for about 43 years now.
Awesome.
She also loved Nigeria so much. We traveled to Nigeria several times. We were with Chief Awolowo in 1983 when he was campaigning to be president of Nigeria. And led a group to Nigeria. I think we call ourselves UPN of Nigeria, 5 of us. And she happened to be with me. We visited all the states with the exception of 3 states. The Enugu, all the eastern states. We're not supposed to go there because they won't vote for Chief Awolowo anyway. So we visited all the states with my wife. We stayed with Chief Awolowo at Kano. He was asking, what state of origin are you? I said, I'm from Ogun State. He said, oh, okay. Who is this? I said, this is my wife. Oh, so anyway. So we were with Chief Awolowo for several days. And also we went to Ogun State with Chief Odebi and things like that. So thank you for everything that you've always been there with me, and we really appreciate it. We are 4 children together, and they're all doing great. So again, thank you very much for everything today. You guys are so wonderful. Thank you. God bless you. Now I want to let her speak. Oh, by the way, 10 years ago, we were made chief by my very, very good friend, Oba T'Shaka. He confined to us the Boba Tulu of Imasayi Kingdom. And also he made her the Yeye Boba Tulu of Imasayi Kingdom. So,
Say Dadani. I can't go much further than that. But I did want to greet you and thank you so much for blessing us with your presence and the challenge to help Nigeria, to help Nigerians abroad, to help Nigerians in Nigeria, because we are all connected. I was so surprised when I did my ancestry DNA and discovered that my biggest percentage of origin was Nigeria. I love that. And you know, that spirit, as you mentioned, is there, has been there. I went to Nigeria before FASTAC, before I met Dr. Toye Moses. I was there on a research mission courtesy of the African Studies Committee at Stanford University, where I went to law school. And as a result of my research into African art and how it was taken during colonial wars to Europe and how Africa was denuded of its culture, I went to Europe to look at the situation in the British Museum, and from there I was invited to a cultural conference in Accra, a UNESCO conference on cultural policies in Africa, and I met African leaders from all over. I was invited by Ekpo Eyo, the director of the museums in Lagos at that time, you know the name? Yes. To come to Nigeria, and he sent me on a tour around the country to look at the situation in Benin and Oshobo and other places. And so I was deeply involved with Nigerian culture and with the whole question of exploitation. And who are we if other people own our culture? And that is the same question that we have today in these United States and across the world, to embed our culture in our young people so that we have pride, we have connection, and we know who we are. Some of us are so lost, but we have an opportunity to resurrect the dream, and I feel it in this room. I feel it with all of you. After I got back, and I worked at Stanford for a while in the African Studies department, and went to FESTAC, and I don't think I knew you then. I met you later through Nansisi and Ray Richardson when I was recruited to teach constitutional law and Black community at the Black Studies department in San Francisco State. But all of this led to my career in the law with arts, and we look for ways to help artists become independent and financially viable. California Lawyers for the Arts also greets you. Thank you for all of the work that you do to preserve African culture and to make sure that it is continuing to be known around the world as the vital force that it is for all of us. I know we've had a long afternoon. I'm not going to preach anymore, but I do want to thank you for giving us this moment and letting us be part of your program. Again, welcome. We are very honored to have your presence here, sir, and we wish you the best on your trip. Thank you.
Civilization, Europeans call Egypt. The name Kemet means Black people, the greatest civilization in the history of the world. I greet you in their language, Hotep, which means peace. Can I hear Hotep?
Hotep.
And this is my wife, Pamela T'Shaka, here. We have a Pan-African Union.
Yes.
I met her in the United Kingdom when I was speaking on behalf of the 5th Pan-African Congress. It was the anniversary of the 5th Pan-African Congress, and I'm an organizer, among other things, and so they would, because it's always my request, I want to stay in African people's homes so I can get to know them and enjoy them. So the last home I stayed in was the home of this lady here. So this is one of the rewards of being involved in the Pan-African struggle. God gives you blessings. And the greatest blessing that an African man can have is an African woman. Am I telling the truth? I have a great friend, his name is Kendi Solowazi, and he's an observer of African women. He knows African women better than anybody other than African women. And so he says a lot of things about African women. One of the things he says, because sometimes we'll be observing situations and then he'll say, well, you know why the sister did that? And I said, why? She's smarter. She raised you, she's smarter. And then he also said something else. The sisters make things happen. Is that true?
Yes.
Kwame Nkrumah, the great leader of Africa's independence movement, would have been nothing without the market women of Ghana. And as long as they approved of him, he was in good shape. So I want to honor the ladies who are here. When the African woman is empowered fully in Africa, in America, in the Caribbean, in South America, in Europe, in Asia, in the South Pacific, because Africans are in all those places, then African men, African children, our African elders will be free. And as long as we follow the Europeans' method of putting the woman second, we're going to be in, as we say it in African American culture, a world of trouble. You know what I'm saying? So I want to honor our sisters. We're here today to honor Oba Gbenga Sonuga, who's an old friend. We met over 30 years ago in Lagos. And he was a very kind person and is today. And received me as a representative of Wajumbe Cultural Organization and Pan-African Peoples Organization. So I want to say welcome. And we honor you, and we also honor your character, a good man. Your wife and the princess who is with you. See, wise man is always measured by the women he's surrounded by. You see these beautiful ladies here? Wise man. We're also here to honor Professor Dansisi Kayu, Inyoye Booker, who's a member and leader of Wajumbe Cultural Institution. And I want to also honor the person who opened this, Ifeyemi, Araba Ifeyemi, who is my Babalawo, introduced to me by Nansisi Kayu. And I can say that I am alive because of my Babalawo, Araba Ifeyemi. One of the greatest diviners around. Of course, I know a lot of you don't want to hear this because I know you have a lot of great diviners. But this one is a master of masters, and Araba, the second highest office of a Yoruba priest. So what I want to speak to is the common unity that Africans share, both Africans in the West, African Americans in this country, which I call New Africans, the Caribbean, South America, and the diaspora, and Africans on the continent. When the hammer of slavery hit Africa, and then the hammer of colonialism hit Africa, Africans were dispersed all over the world, and particularly the Caribbean, South America, and the United States. One of the strong groups that they brought into the Western Hemisphere was the Yoruba group. Another was Igbo. I know some people just want me to speak of one group, but the Igbo was also a very important group in this country, as well as Asante and many others. But the Yoruba maintained a very important connection in the diaspora. And because you were dispersed in places like Cuba, Brazil, Haiti, the United States, and other parts of the Caribbean, what ended up happening is that the Yoruba ended up having a very special impact on African unity globally. Because being the people that you are, you were able to maintain your culture in different places. And so that contributed to the strength of African culture in each of these areas. And in the United States and in the Caribbean, the places where Catholicism was strongest, then African culture prevailed in a stronger way because you could hide the Orishas and the other spirits behind the saints of Catholicism. Nansisi Kayu is partially a product of that, coming out of Louisiana, where you have strong African culture in the form of voodoo. And Nansisi Kayu was a lover of Africa, of African people, and of new Africans. And the cultural expressions that she gave expression to through both dance and her politics was an expression of both the merger of African and African American culture. And we owe Ifeyemi being in the Bay Area, we owe the connection with Brother Oba Gbenga Sonuga to Nansisi, because Nansisi forged these connections. And I want to say as a warrior, I've been in battles now 63 years. FBI's tried to kill me 3 times. CIA. I'm not here by accident, because we don't all fall. But I owe a lot to Nansisi Kayu and Ray Richardson. When they were trying, I've been married 2 times, and the first time I married in '69, I'd been a full-time organizer. Broke, because when you're in the Black Freedom Movement, you don't get paid. And that was a good thing. Our leaders need to learn. You don't serve money, you serve your people. You hear what I'm saying? And so they saw I was married and I had no job. And so the women got together and decided this man needs a job. So the first one was Ray Richardson. And she got me a job in Marin, teaching at a junior high school, Martin Luther King Junior High School. And after a year, because I didn't have a teaching credential, the superintendent, who she was an advisor to, Ray Richardson, co-owner of Marcus Bookstore, one of the mothers of our movement and our people in this area, along with Julian Richardson, who is a teacher in our community. People like Dr. Wade Nobles, Dr. Asa Hilliard sat at his feet. Marcus Bookstore was the university of the black community here before there was black studies. And so the first person that got me a job was Ray Richardson. And then when they're going to get me a provisional teaching credential, the FBI came in and filed a 17-page report and said, deny this man a teaching credential because he's a criminal. A criminal in the fight for my people. Now, I could have won that, but the Spirit told me, don't fight this. It's the only fight I never fought. You know what I mean? The Spirit said no. Always follow the Spirit. Am I telling the truth?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So guess what happens next? We're having, it's an organization, Pan-African People's Organization, that I've been in now since 1966. We operate a school, African Children's Advanced Learning Center. It's been in operation 51 years. 98% of our students go to college. 50% get scholarships, and all of them come out African. Do you hear that? That's not an easy thing to do in America, where they're trying to brainwash you. So what happens is, again, I'm out of work. Of course, I got another job. But Nansisi Kayu is running from the backseat, because sisters make things happen. And Ray Richardson, they're running black studies at San Francisco State. Now there's a brother from South Africa who was the chair, but they were the real chair. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Those of you who are in the church, you know the sisters run the church. They let the brothers get up there and preach, and if they do the wrong thing too long, they remove them. And you all know with the Oba, I took the name Oba. I know I'm not a king of any kingdom or anything like that. But what I liked about this concept of Oba is the one who has good character. Oba is the one who is picked to be Oba, but is subject to a council. And it's oftentimes, I know among the Yoruba people, you have the eldest man and eldest woman who's wise that recommend the Oba. What I really liked about the Oba is this, that when he got into office, he had to follow the consensus of his council. He was not in charge of his people. And when he failed to do it, 3 times he got noticed in traditional times. And if he failed to follow the rules of the people, and that included the market women, they would send him a bowl with a parrot feather in it. And this is the one African method of election and removal. That method was, and I know Yoruba in here know this is traditional times, kill yourself. That's called election, and that's called rejection. And I know a lot of leaders that need to get that message. You know what I'm talking about? So I picked that because I like this idea of leadership that you must follow the people. Now, in the Africans being brought into the Western Hemisphere, brought into the various parts of the Caribbean and in the United States, there is a myth that the African in America lost their culture. There is a myth. If that's so, you explain to me how it is that the African culture in America, that is the new African culture, is the popular culture of the United States and the world. Explain that to me. And why? Because here, the African faced the most difficult challenge in continuing and recreating the culture. In the Caribbean and in South America, the African was a majority. And so, as Eric Williams, one of the great prime ministers of Trinidad, said, African culture was dropped in the Caribbean. It was 98% black. My wife comes from Barbados. It's black. It's probably the best run country on the planet. You hear what I'm saying? They got honest leadership. They don't have to walk around with security. And except for one group that came in, they don't steal on any massive level. Y'all hear what I'm saying? And so in the Caribbean, African culture was dropped there. It's called hybrid because there's the European influence, there's the African influence. But in America, where they were killing Native Americans, trying to wipe them out, and they wiped out 90% of them, they were creating a successful settler colony. So while blacks were a majority in South Carolina and some other areas and a near majority in Mississippi, we had to struggle to recreate this culture here. We had to fight to maintain it. And what were the things that enabled us to continue the culture? On virtually every plantation, this is not generally known, the leaders of the Africans in the United States were diviners. They were priests and priestesses. Some Babalaos. Some of them priests from the Akan system. Some of them priests from the Igbo system and other systems. But they were the leaders. And why did this help us sustain the culture? Because the African would go to them in times of trouble to find out what was their destiny. What was their future? If they were going to try and escape, would it be successful? And if you read about Frederick Douglass, you'll know that Frederick Douglass was being advised by one of these wise people. So spirit is at the core of African culture. Spirit is at the core of African American culture. And this is a unity that we as a people have. And we know that ultimately that spirit is God. And Nansisi Kayu was a spirit lady. Y'all know that? I know and Yeye knows that. She was a spirit lady. And she sent us the spirit man, Ifeyemi. who didn't just keep me alive, kept a whole lot of other people alive. The other thing that sustained us was that when we were brought here, lineage and clan couldn't survive because everybody in your family group wasn't brought here. But what could survive was the extended family. And so when they broke up families, and you didn't know, as some enslaved Africans would say, brother, father, sister, mother. What you did know was some African women and men on a plantation that took you in, and as one slave narrator said, I didn't know father, mother, sister, brother, but I was loved, and I'm all right. Extended family. And that was key to the liberation movements that we waged in the South, the Black Freedom Movement that busted up segregation in the South, Southern style apartheid, that extended family community that nurtured the children of the community. There are many other things that were forged culturally, but the one that I think is most important is the African American conception of freedom. It is not the same as the European. The European conception is freedom is for the purpose of power, to control other people. You just witnessed today the installation of a new king in Britain. And this is them going back to a period where the sun never set on the British Empire. Now it not only set, it rained, it's foggy, and they have lost their power. But they're glorying in their crowns and their gold that they took from Africa, that they took from African people. And so their kings were the strong man that ruled. The kings in Africa were the best men that ruled, always held in check by their women. So these were some features and many others, but the key point about the drive for freedom is the African in America had to draw on special resources to recreate this culture here, and those resources led to what we call improvisation as a cardinal feature of our culture, creating on the spur of the moment. And so, as the Yoruba have as a key quality of your culture, ori, destiny, this notion that everyone is put here for a purpose. The people of Kemet had as their notion the idea of ma'at, harmony, truth, justice, and right order. That was their ethos. I was sitting with my wife, we were then courting, and we're sitting on the deck of our house here in Oakland, and she made this very deep observation. She said, the ethos of the African American is distinct from every other African in the world. It wasn't an insult, it was a deep observation. I already knew she was smart. You know, the first rule for an African man is get you a smart woman. Is that right? Huh?
Yes, sir.
If she's smarter than you, that's fine. But you don't want one that isn't smart. And the women already know that. They know that. So I started thinking, because I hadn't thought of that before, because she's traveled all over the world, so she's compared Africans in different parts of the world. And she's been in Nigeria, loves Nigeria, and various other places. And so I started thinking, what is unique about the African in America? It is this ethos that comes out of us having to recreate a culture here. And that ethos is creativity. This African in America, all Africans are creative. But the ethos of the African American has had to be creative for us to survive. And so I'm saying that we have a union here between this new African culture and the African culture of old Africa. And one of the key things that the enslaved African came up with was, as a cultural unity that now is a part of African culture, was the idea that we in Africa need to be one. We need to have a unity of Africa that is called Pan-Africanism. The European has the European Union. Why? Because they nearly wiped themselves out through 2 world wars. So out of necessity, they have come together. We have come together out of love. And so it's this bridge of love that we have to draw from. Now, in honoring Oba Gbenga Sonuga. I want to especially honor him for the kindness and generosity that he showed when Nansisi Kayu asked me to come to Nigeria representing Wajumbe and also Pan-African People's Organization and other groups. And so I was privileged to be welcomed by Brother Sonuga. He welcomed me, took me into his home, and looked after me. And then told me that one of his relatives was the ambassador from Nigeria to Ghana. And so I ended up going to the embassy in Ghana and staying there and negotiating a cultural exchange agreement based on this brother's support and consciousness and love for African people. So I want to say welcome. You have created a bridge for us that we walk over and join with you on, as Sister Nansisi Kayu did as well, and Sister Booker. Wajumbe, People with a Message, is a cultural institution that perpetuated and pushed African culture. They went to Nigeria for Festac, pushing African culture. And it is our culture that is our future. This culture that has to be strengthened, revived, because of the hits that it's faced from colonialism and what's called neo-colonialism, economic control. But it is this culture that is our saving grace. It is what makes us beautiful as a people. And so I want to simply say that it's a pleasure to be here and to welcome you, Oba, and to honor Nansisi Kayu, my buddy, a sister that I really love, a strong spirit. She liked certain kinds of African men. She didn't just like African men, she liked certain kinds. So I'm glad I'm one of those certain kinds. I was blessed. Anytime the African man gets support of the African woman, then everything else is going to work. And so I would not have taught at San Francisco State for nearly 40 years, but for Nansisi Kayu and Ray Richardson. And I would not have been able to do as much as I did without them. She is part of my heart. She was a good friend, and a good friend is not just a friend who's there when life is good. Good friend is a friend that's there in times of need. And we were good friends for each other, and I know she's in heaven now, plotting her return. So I want to say welcome, and to all of you, greetings. Thank you.
Thank you again. It's been a long time, and congratulations. And to others here, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here and to also speak on behalf of Wajumbe Cultural Institution. I first came across Wajumbe when I was in college in Southern California. I was a dancer, among other things, and was able to make a connection with them when I came back to San Francisco, began dancing, taking classes, and was eventually asked to join the company. Again, a great honor. And being in dance and having that as a core, and then being introduced to the way dance was done with Nansisi and Wajumbe was just mind-blowing. It took you to your roots, and it explained that the arts is life. And so it's not the added on things that we do, but it's understanding who we are as a person, as a Black person in America. And so it was very timely when I did join. We were getting ready to go to Jamaica for a Carry Fest. And so that was great. And then on the heels of that, we were preparing to they had already auditioned to go to Festac. And Festac had been postponed for a while. The original one had been done earlier, and then the one for Nigeria had been postponed, and so it was reset. And so luckily I was there to be able to be a part of that. And it took a lot of work. And I remember and to go to Festac, they had divided the United States into two groups. One group would go at the beginning, the opening, and be there for several weeks. And then another group from all across the United States would go for the ending. So we were in the ending group. And the night when we, boarded the plane, TWA, at San Francisco Airport, it was the last night of Roots. And Roots was a big thing because we had never seen anything like that. Alex Haley's Roots being televised. And so I guess TWA and San Francisco Airport hadn't seen this many young, Black, African people there waiting to get on this midnight flight. So they allowed us to board the plane early and turned on the TV set or whatever so we could watch the final installment of Roots. So again, it was sort of like laying the foundation for this trip. And also, we did a lot of studying before going. We were able to, and again, Nansisi was able to connect us with so many very important people who helped us to understand and really give us our teaching about who we are as a people and that our lives didn't just start here in America through slavery. And so the whole experience in Nigeria was wonderful, and I think that was probably when we first met you. But it was a whirlwind and such an exciting opportunity to see so many Black people from all over the world who looked like Cousin Pookie down the street or Auntie Pam. You saw people who looked like you, but when you got to them, they spoke a totally different language. I know I was followed all the time, and people thought I was from Ethiopia or Eritrea or Somalia, and so I said, okay, well, that must be my tribe. That was, and to this day, people still do that, so that must be my tribe. But just the eye-opening of what we were able to experience with that, such a wonderful opportunity. And so from that, Nansisi continued to provide the education, to provide the opportunities to speak to so many important people, and began this back and forth between Lagos, the Arts Council, and Wajumbe. And so we were able to host a group who came and performed here, and then we were able to go in
81 and 91.
It was 91, because I was able to take my daughter, who at that time was 8 years old. So she was our youngest member in our contingent of 32 people.
Yes.
And again, a wonderful opportunity. And upon going for this trip, and it had multiple purposes, not only to perform, but we were also talking about our economic development that was going to coordinate Africa and the United States. So it just so happened, before leaving New York on that trip, Nansisi was sidelined and had to remain behind. So because I was president of the board, I had to step in, or try to step into her shoes. And so when we landed immediately, and it was the press conferences and all of this. Now I had promised my 8-year-old daughter, oh baby, we're gonna be together. I'm not dancing this trip. I'm part of the education part and the economic part. Little did we know, as soon as we got there, she was swooped off, I think you did that, to your family, while we took care of all of the press conferences and the different meetings. We didn't have cell phones back then. So I was worried, but I also knew that my daughter was with family and was in good hands.
Yes.
So we finally met up, and we did our part. And again, she was separated from me and was able, because I had to go to the University of Lagos to participate in the educational component, and the rest of the group, the performers, went to Benin. Benin, right?
Benin, yes.
So they took my daughter, and she was fine by that time.
Right.
But she came back with stories about how she got to play with the children of the king there,
Yes.
and they had just the run of the palace and just all of these great memories.
Right.
And so again, I thank you for accepting my daughter and building in her this opportunity, this lifelong opportunity. And so from there, she's become a world traveler. She did some of her study in high school in Ghana. In college, she did some of her study in Morocco, where she lived there for a while. And then she also hosted other high school group students to go back. And so she's been all over the world. And I really, thank the opportunity of the 91 trip and opening that door. But also with that, having her come into our rehearsals and our shows and really understanding what it means to be Black. And especially a Black woman in America, but also the world. And so she's a force to be reckoned with. And again, all of it has to deal with starting with that opportunity to be a part of Wajumbe, the vision of Nansisi, and that our purpose was not just to go and entertain, but it was about edutainment, educating people. And so even the way we did performances, it wasn't you do a set and then you take a bow and then you do another one, but it ran. So an hour and a half, we were like back and forth doing it, and we combined live music, drummers, and we did the evolution of Black dance. So starting from Africa, and then how it evolved and went to the Caribbean, and how it wound up here, and all the different music and dance forms that originated from the original beat. Sound, color, movement.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
Sound, color, movement.
Yes.
That was one of our basic pieces that we would do.
Yes.
But laying the foundation, the purpose of who we are, what we need to do, and how to do it, was what Nansisi provided.
Yeah.
And the connection with you. So thank you again. We love you, Nansisi. We love everybody. Thank you so much.
Today is
6th. 05. 6th of May, 2023.
what the name.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni sà, Kẹ́hìndé Ṣókọ̀ yìí. Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni, Kẹ́hìndé Ṣókọ̀. Thank you. Thank you.